List. Here's your fair warning to everybody. All right, well, welcome to our very first Student Alumni Association meeting for the new semester for 22-23. Before we begin, before I introduce our esteemed speaker today, Dr. Condon, I do just have a couple quick announcements. Please remember to register for your classes. We want to make sure that we get that everyone's able to get into the classes that they want, so that we don't have to cancel any classes if they're under enrolled, that let me put this in, that they don't fill up if you need to take a certain course. So please register this week, okay? Because I have course cancellation meetings coming up. And then additionally, please also apply for the AFB scholarship, the Lex scholarship. That's our here, let me put it in here. That is our honor society, Lex, Lambda, Epsilon, Chi. And so since we are a part of the organization, American Association for Paralegal Educators, they offer this scholarship. I just put it in the text or in the chat box. Please take the time to apply for this scholarship. It's your statement would be published in their publication, The Educator, which is a really great thing to add to your resume. It's a little extra cash for you. And they make a big deal about it at our national conference, which is coming up in October. So I think it would be a wonderful thing for anyone who's interested in applying to do so. The deadline is September 1st, so it's rapidly approaching. There is a requirement that I send a letter of good standing after you apply, so please let me know if you apply so I can send that letter of good standing, okay? Any questions about registration or the scholarship? Okay, well then, one more quick announcement. As you all, or most of you know, Professor Dean retired at the end of the semester, and he left this huge void in our hearts here in the program. However, I believe we are beginning to fill that void with our new hire. And Professor Ian Sharping is with us here today. He's taken the time off of his weekend and he is out of town even. That's how much he cares about you guys and how excited he is. So I will let him say hello to you all briefly. Professor Sharping.
Hello, everyone. It's very nice to meet you. Yeah, I'm excited to join the team. As Becky had mentioned, I'm in the car right now where we're headed to a baby shower this morning. So, but I felt like it was a unique opportunity to introduce myself and let you know that I'm excited to join the team, and I'll be teaching some paralegal studies this coming semester. Criminology and business law, and the one that I might be most excited to teach is the cyber law class. I have a background in cybersecurity, and so I'm really interested in getting to know everyone in the class and jumping into that subject matter. So, just figuring out how to make myself most useful to the team and contribute as much as I can. So I'm always here for any questions or feedback. And with that, I will turn it back over to Becky.
Thanks, Ian. Welcome. And you're getting all kinds of claps. I don't know if you can see them on your end, but everybody's really excited. So yeah, business law 201, 202 he's teaching, and cyber law BLW 204, which is an elective. So if you guys are interested in taking those, please register this week. Okay. All right. So now, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Dr. Christine Condon. A little bit about Dr. Condon. She was also a paralegal program coordinator, and she retired in 2020 as the program director of the Kankakee Community College's ABA approved paralegal program. She began her paralegal career in service to the first district justices of the Illinois Supreme Court when they opened their Chicago satellite office. During that time, she did research on motions and coordinated 36 motion calls per year for the justices who sat in Cook County. She also dealt with media, drafted proposed changes to the Supreme Court rules of practice, and fulfilled public information requests on cases pending before the court. After that, she served as the computer literacy coordinator in the Roosevelt University paralegal program and joined South Suburban College's paralegal adjunct faculty while working on her master's degree. During her 8 years at SSC, she also served as the interim program coordinator while working full-time as a computer trainer at a top 10 law firm, and then at the American Medical Association. She moved to KCC in 1998 and spent the last 22 years of her career there. She's a Microsoft Office certified educator, a Microsoft Office specialist, certified in all versions of the software. She graduated with a Bachelor of Arts magna cum laude from Illinois Wesleyan University in Bloomington, a paralegal certificate with honors from Roosevelt University, a Master of Education from Loyola University of Chicago, and a Doctor of Education in Community College Leadership from National Louis University. She is a wealth of knowledge. Welcome, Dr. Condon. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Walters. I'm grateful for the opportunity. And thank you to all of you for taking some time on a Saturday morning so that we can visit and share some tips and hints. And a special shout out to Professor Sharping. I wish you all the best as you launch your paralegal educator's career at South Suburban College. That is where, as Professor Walters noted, that's where I began my career. I taught in court reporting and in paralegal. And it was a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. And I told Professor Walters that one of the things I did when I was interim coordinator at SSC was I got the Paralegal Alumni Association up and going. So I'm really glad after all these years that you're all still cooking. I think that's wonderful, because the best thing that you can do as alumni is not only to stay engaged in your craft, but also to demonstrate leadership and professionalism to those students who are coming through the pipeline and are following you now. So I know that we have just an hour of time to spend together, but I wanted to make sure and give you a little bit of a jump start for those of you who are taking classes this fall on some tips and some hints that are related to Microsoft Office. These are things that I learned in my career as a trainer in a law firm. I also learned those working for lawyers and judges, because we all know that you need to stay a step ahead of a lawyer and you need to stay 2 steps ahead of a judge to make sure that we get all the bases covered. And so for that reason, these are things that we frequently taught students in our legal technology course in the paralegal program at KCC. So what I would like to do also here, I just have this in a PowerPoint. And I realize that overexposure to PowerPoint is, like the 5th leading cause of death in America. But I want to go ahead and just give you some information, a little bit of information dump. And I don't want to be hopping back and forth between browser windows and applications, because I feel like that's just not a great use of our time. So what I have done in the PowerPoint is I have provided the instructions for the things that we're going to cover, just the tips and the hints. And then I will make a copy of that PowerPoint handout with those instructions available to Professor Walters post-meeting. And then that way, she can share that with you and you can do with it what you want. You can send it to people. I mean, I have no pride of authorship when it comes to this. It's Microsoft stuff. So I don't own the way this works. But we can do that. And then I've allotted some time at the end. If you've got some specific questions about something in a Microsoft product that's just really bothering you, you can put it in the chat. And Professor Walters, maybe just for efficiency, will you be able to manage the questions in the chat, and you can kind of just jump in whenever there's something that pops up? That would be great. Absolutely. And we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah.
Sound
would you
good?
like me to interrupt you then when the question comes up, or wait? Okay.
Absolutely. Great. No, that's terrific. So let me go ahead here right now, and I'm going to share my presentation here. Let's make sure you can all see this. So you can all see Okay, you can all see it all right? I'm assuming that looks okay. All right. So we're going to call this a baker's half dozen. So I guess, oh, pop quiz question on a Saturday morning, right? Because you should be having baked goods and coffee. Do we know what a baker's half dozen is?
Is it 7?
It's 7. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I did this at a conference a couple of years ago, and I did a baker's dozen, and people just said, well, you know, Chris, it's a dozen, like move on to the next tip. So thank you. I have no lovely party gift for you, but you know, hopefully, yeah, that's good. So it's a baker's half dozen. I've got 7 things here that I think might be useful because they are things that help us work not more accurately, but more efficiently. And so that's what I'm all about. Anytime that I could empower students to do something in 5 steps instead of 50 steps, even if 50 steps got us to the same result, I always thought that was useful because we all know time is money, right? We bill our lives in the work world in probably 6-minute increments. And so time is money. So let me give you a little bit of an overview of what we'll address here. I'd like to show you a little bit about working with styles. I'd like to show you a bit about object linking and embedding. Oh, and Professor Walters asked for this one, creating case captions, my editorial comment, without pressing the space bar 1,000 times to put the little right parenthesis in your case caption. Oh, you're all nodding your heads. Yes. So there should be a support group for those of us who need to do that. Okay. But then what I'm going to show you is how you can then automate that work with what we call quick parts. That will unleash a world of information for you that you will love. And I'll give you a tiny quick overview of macros. You don't have to have any programming knowledge required here. I'd like to also show you a little bit about the slide master in PowerPoint and logistically why that's helpful. And then kind of a quick shift over into some business communication etiquette strategies using the Microsoft Outlook calendar. So this is what we're shooting for. So here's the first tip. Tip number 1, you've got style. I've been with all of you long enough to know that this program has lots of style. So let's talk a little bit about style. So you know that, for example, if you file, let's say in the Illinois courts, or if you file in federal court, that there are usually restrictions on the formatting on the document, or that they ask to have it formatted in a certain way so that when it converts to PDF and you e-file it, that it preserves that formatting. And we also know that sometimes you have internal documents that you are doing that will never see the light of day in a courtroom, but they're internal documents where maybe your firm has a standard for the way in which they want something to be formatted. And so the benefit to understanding styles is that these are going to provide you with some consistency in what you do. And I'm just curious here right now, let me show everybody on the video here or on the grid. I am just curious to know if you can give me a quick show of hands. How many of you are familiar or use styles in your work? If you want to use the hand emoji or just raise your hand, who's using styles? Okay, so then this is why we're doing tip number 1, right? Because we want to make sure that you can do some things with efficiency. So styles in Microsoft Word fall into one of 5 categories, and they can either be used to format a paragraph or a piece of text, or you can do paragraph and character at once, or a table, or a list. And here's the reason that that has value. If you have ever done, let's say, a procedure guide for law office management, and you are using headings at the start of each section, and you are manually formatting those, and then, you know, the partner who's having you produce this says, well, I don't like this font style. It sounds to me like what you're doing right now is you are manually fixing all of those headings. And we don't want you to be doing that. We want you to, instead of fixing 27 headings, each one at a time, we would like you to modify the style that has been applied to 27 headings. And at that point, then you are fixing all 27 of those headings at once, as opposed to fixing them one at a time. Is that making sense? Okay. So now understanding the definition, anybody got some familiarity with that? Okay, still no, that's okay. So let me explain then why or where this goes and how you use this. So you'll notice in my notes, I have said here that it is attached to the normal template. So let me give you a 30-second overview of what the normal template is. You know, when you open up Microsoft Word and you get the blank sheet of paper and it tells you you got the margins and the Calibri 11-point font, that's the normal template. And what can happen here is that when you create a style, you can attach, let me do this for dramatic effect, okay, how I've got my fingers hooked together. You can attach that style to the normal template, meaning that when you come into the office on Monday morning and you create a new document for some new procedure guide and you need those same headings, that style doesn't have to be recreated. It's attached to the template. So that's the power of how this works. So I've given you in this next slide, you can all see this okay? Okay. There are a couple of ways that you can do this. And one is that you can create a style from a selection. So conceptually, here's how this works. And I've given you the instructions here and then a screenshot. So let's say that you've got a really nice looking heading that's maybe on a motion or something like that. Maybe a heading that's starting with, something related to count one or argument one, and you want that style to be used elsewhere in your pleading. You can create a style from that selection. So here's how that works. The create from selection process lets you highlight the text, and then the easy way to do this is to right click with your mouse. And from there, you'll see I've got the styles button there, and you choose the option called create a style. And it will then open up this style dialog box and give you a chance to name the style. So you highlight the text that you really like, that you want to use as a style format, with bold and underline and font style and centering and all that kind of stuff. You right click it, you say create a style, and then you notice I say there in my notes, give it a unique name with initials. Here's my logic behind that. I always taught students to do this. When I would go and create a style, maybe I would call the style, my initials are KMC. So I would call the style, KMC heading. And then maybe I'd have another one called KMC Illinois courts, and then maybe KMC federal courts. And my logic behind that is when you have a list of styles to pick from, they're all listed alphabetically. And then the ones that I needed are all right there because they all start with KMC. And I didn't have to be scrolling up and down and saying, gee, on that case of, Professor Walters, I don't remember what style I used. I've got it named that way. Could you use a client's name? Yeah, but if you need that style across lots of client matters, then maybe that's not so helpful. But having your initials on it, that's easy peasy for you to try and remember. Now, the other thing that is helpful about this is that when you create a style, you can attach it either to a document or to the normal template. So let me explain the difference. We already talked about attaching it to the template, right? The normal template. Then it's always available. But what if you need some specific styles for a specific document in a jurisdiction where you're only going to have this case one time? Well, then you can attach it and make it just specific to the document. Now, I will just say, spoiler alert, and I believe Professor Walters in your legal technology course, because I believe you and I use the same course materials, in that course, the book gives you instruction on how you can actually copy styles from a document to a template or a template to a document, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. We kind of don't have time for that today, but the point is that you can create a style that you only need specifically for a document, or you can create a style that you attach to a template that can be available then for any document. And that technique then that we use is to create it from a selection. So hopefully I've planted that idea in your head for some stuff for the fall, especially when you're drafting research memos and that kind of thing. It's a wonderfully efficient tool. Anything on that, or should I go ahead and go on? We're good?
I think
Okay.
so.
All right. Well, let's keep going then. There is another opportunity here. Let me just go here and give you the screenshot for this. This is creating the new style from formatting. So again, when I've highlighted the text and I've done the right click, you've probably seen this dialog box before, but here's where I would give it the unique name. I can go ahead then and pick all the fancy formatting, and then it shows me what it's going to look like in the window. And then here is where you have the choice of attaching it just to the document or to documents based upon the template. And then you click the OK button and you're good to go. And then you have that document or that style available for you. Okay, well, let's take a look then at the second one. This one is one of my favorites, object linking and embedding. And I know what you're saying, boy, she's got to get out more if this is like the big thrill of her day. But, you know, I got to tell you, a lot of times you'll be working with let's say some text in an Excel file. Maybe you've got some financials or something, and you need to put that in, let's say, 2 different documents, maybe 2 different Word documents. You might just be copying and pasting. Well, the problem with that is the minute the Excel data changes, what do you have to do in the Word document? You got to go back and fix it in the Word document. Not if you know how to do object linking and embedding. So I get that, you know, the entire world knows how to do copy and paste, right? My 7-year-old neighbor across the street knows how to do copy and paste. He's all over that. And by the way, he's a shortcutter. You know, he does the keyboard shortcuts, Control C and Control V. And he actually told me, and I have shared this with my students too, he said the way he remembered Control V to do a paste was because Control V stands for Control Velcro. Right? Leave it to a little kid to know Control Velcro. But what we're talking here is more than copy and paste. We're talking about making a link. So think about, you know, like the concept of a chain link fence. You're not just using copy and paste. What you're using instead is a tool called Paste Special. And if you know this, this has unleashed a world of wonderment for you, because this gets used all the way across the Microsoft Office suite. So conceptually, when you do copy and paste, you're just taking a static copy of the clipboard and you're slapping it in. And there's no integration between what you copied and what you pasted. In other words, if you change it in one place, you got to go copy and repaste it in to get information updated. That's not what object linking and embedding does. The paste link pastes your content in as a target. And so the terms that are super important here are source and target. And you saw me just a minute ago take my fingers together and link them like this. It makes the link dynamic instead of static, meaning that if I take that Excel file and I make some edits to it, anything that I linked that file to automatically gets updated when I reopen the file. So let me give you a visual of what this looks like. And by the way, you got to pay attention to this radio button here, because paste link will then say, well, okay, Chris, what is it that you're trying to paste in here? Is it an Excel something? Is it a picture? Is it a piece of a PowerPoint? Whatever. So let me give you a visual of what this looks like. So I just actually did this not too long ago. I am a corporate officer for a not-for-profit organization here in the South Suburbs that is building a veterans memorial. And so that means I got to manage the money. And it's time for our annual meeting next week. And I keep the fiscal reports in Excel. Well, okay, so in that framework, that fiscal report is my source. But what I need to do then are 3 additional things. I need to link that financial data to a business report that potentially we give the accountant. I could link it to a slideshow that I'm going to go maybe deliver when we're trying to do a pitch for a grant. And then maybe I also need to link it to a second Excel file where I keep the cumulative totals. So not just fiscal year totals, but the history of the corporation. Well, I got to tell you, folks, I don't want to be fixing that in 4 spots. I want to fix it in 1 spot and have it update in 3 other spots. So conceptually, what I do here is I go and I make the edit or I make the modification in the source document. If you want to call it the original, that's fine. But then what I've done is I've taken samples of this data and I have copied and paste specialed, that's a verb I just made up. I've paste specialed it into the Word report for the board and paste specialed it into a PowerPoint for a presentation I'm doing and paste specialed it into another cumulative Excel file. And so then what happens when we get, let's say, $100 donation, I track the donation in the source file. And what happens through the magic of technology? Bing, bang, boom. The 3 target files automatically update. Now, let me stop you right here, because a lot of times students would say to me, do I have to have all 3 of those files open? The answer is absolutely not. You just need to have the source open and you make the change in the source. Then when you open the target, it will say, hey, your name inserted here. It looks like we've got some links to update. Would you like me to do that? And you answer that question, yes, and it's off to the races and it'll go and update it automatically for you. So in other words, for me to have all of this updated, I only have to have the source updated. I don't have to have the 3 targets open in order for the updating to take effect, because the next time I open them up, through the wonders of technology, it's automatically updated. So I want to reinforce the fact that this works across the suite, right? I mean, you can link from Excel to Word, you can link from Word to PowerPoint, you can link from PowerPoint to Excel. I mean, whatever makes you happy, this works across the suite. But the distinction there is that single word special, paste special. All right, how we doing on that one? Pretty good? Did we have something in the chat there that I missed?
Not yet. I just
Okay.
typed, feel free to type any questions in the chat. So
Great. Okay. Thank you so much. All right. Now, this one was
I
paralegal
have a
program.
question.
Oh, yes,
I'm sorry.
please. No, please go ahead.
Where could I find more information? We were talking about Excel, more information on pivot tables.
Oh, great question. Okay. So Julie, there are a couple of places that I would steer you to.
Okay.
One is that Microsoft, I believe it's called Microsoft Learning or Microsoft e-learning. They've got a lot of information on pivot tables. And here for the rest of the studio audience, what a pivot table is when you have a really large pool of data. Pivot tables allow you to take, and if you think about swiveling that data around, that you can filter it and customize it in a particular way. So an application for Julie might be something like, if you've got all sorts of doctor bills in a PI matter, that you want to pivot that in such a way that you are only looking at the progression of the doctor bills as the injuries got worse, or the amount of financial loss, based on customers who left the company or whatever it happens to be. So Julie, one place that I like to go to is Microsoft e-learning, because they not only have some FAQ pages, but they also have some quick little videos, which are sometimes helpful.
Yes.
Another free resource that you can go to is LinkedIn does have some little badges that you can earn and complete some course study on those. And then the other thing, and I'm putting in a plug for South Suburban College's continuing ed area, because I used to work in continuing ed at Kankakee as well. But there are also, Julie, some little non-credit workshops that your continuing ed company or department runs. And I believe they use a company called Education to Go.
Okay.
So they have little short workshops like that you can do, but it is non-credit. In other words, it would not work towards a paralegal degree, but you're really just wanting it for the professional development. And so those off the top of my head would be 3, I think, stellar places for you to start.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Sure, you're welcome. Anything else?
Dr. Condon, there was a question from Carla in the chat. She asked if I could review the source file again.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking that, Carla. And by the way, I'm keeping my chat closed because otherwise I got too much real estate going on in this window and it's hard for me to see all of you too. So Carla, the source file, another way to put it is it's the original file. It's the file where you input all your information. So going back to this example of the fundraising that I'm doing for this veterans project, when we want to track donors, I don't go in this graphic that I've got up in the PowerPoint and put the donors in the target. I put the donors in the source because it's the originating information. And then Carla, that originating information is what I tie or I link or I incorporate into some other document. So for example, let's say that the president of our corporate board of directors says to me, hey, Chris, give me a little narrative on the fundraisers we've done and then break down what the fundraising goal was. I would use Word to write up that memo to him and explain this is the fundraiser we did and this many people showed up. But then I would take the financial data from the source and link it. Let me put my fingers together this way again, link it from the Excel file into the memo I'm writing for him.
Okay, so when you say source, you're identifying it, sorry. You're identifying it as the data. That's me. Sorry, guys, let me turn that off.
Yes, your question is, in that context, would the source be the data file? And the answer is yes.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
All right. And I was just wondering how so when you're working on your source file, when you open up the other Excel or the Word or PowerPoint, then how does it identify it again? Can you go through that again? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you know what? Let me, can I take a second and can I defer and do an example for you at the end of the tip so I could fire up Excel and Word and actually show you a physical what it'd look like?
Okay, great. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Oh, no, absolutely. No, that's absolutely fine. I'm just saying that because I don't have Excel and Word open and I want to be respectful of everybody's time on that, but that'll give me a chance to get that put together at the end for you while you're coming up with questions. Would that be okay?
Yeah, this is phenomenal. This is a big hit for me. This thing right here. And I'm sorry.
glad.
I know what it's like to have multiple screens open. I'm working with two right now, and I apologize for that.
No apologies needed. But give me a defer on that, and I made a note, and we'll take care of that in just a second.
Thank you.
Tip number 3. This was program. You're welcome. This is program director's call. She said creating captions for tables. Inquiring minds want to know, how many of you have captions that you do in your documents that look like this? Yeah. Again, there's everybody, exactly right. And it is
from the attorneys looking like that.
Absolutely. But of course, that's why they need us. So this is what we need to do. What we need, instead of something that is so annoying, we need to use, ta-da, the borderless table. In other words, if you use a table to create your caption and you remove the borders from it, they will look at you and say, we're going to go put another 0 on your salary. So here's how this works. What I usually suggest is that you start by creating a 3-column, 1-row table. And of course, we know that the table cells are all of equal width when we first get started. In the very first cell, what I would put is plaintiff and defendant information. The second cell will eventually be a small column for your right parenthesis, and then your third column can be your jurisdiction information. And then when you're done, you remove the borders of the table. Now, I get at this point that the table columns are all of equal width, but we're going to go ahead and fix that in a second. So in this first column, what I have done is I've put my case caption. In the second column, I put all my right parentheses in here. And in my third column, I've got my jurisdiction info. What I do next here, I went and I shortened up the second column. And then I adjusted the text in the right-hand column. And I know that you all do this in your Microsoft Office class. And I know also that you do it in legal technology, because again, I know you use the same materials that we do. But you see right now that this document still has table borders around the outside. But once you get this done and you finish it off, then you go and you highlight the table and you remove the borders from the outside. And then this is a glorious piece of legal work. How about that?
That's amazing. Thank you.
Are we getting some applause emojis for that? Okay, good.
Yes.
Good. Yeah, I'll tell you, and I would have students say to me, you know what, Dr. C, I really wish I would have known this like a year ago. And I said, yeah, but then what fun would it be in your second year? So we wanted to make sure that you had this, but now wait, I got more, because let's assume that you've done this. You're going to need this for, let's say, 6 different pleadings that you're working on. What you do not want to be doing, and I've been watching you, so I know you're doing this, is you go and you open up a copy of this, you do a file save as, then you highlight all the other stuff except for the caption, and then you delete it, right? Yeah, don't do that anymore. Because what we're going to have you do instead is tip number 4, we're going to have you save that little thing as a quick part. Now, those of you who've been around for a while and have used older versions of Word may be familiar with the concept of auto text, where you could automatically paste some boilerplate stuff in. Case captions, folks, are examples of auto text. But they don't call them auto text anymore. Bill Gates calls them quick parts. So here's what's really cool about a quick part. What a quick part does, and it's different from a macro, and I'll get to that in a minute. What you can do once you get that beautiful borderless table created is you can highlight that text and save it as what we call a quick part. And it goes up into your little quick parts gallery. And then 2 weeks from now, when you have a motion to dismiss to do in this case, instead of opening up a file, doing a file save as, highlighting all the stuff you don't need and deleting it, what do? You take a blank document, bing, bang, boom, you pop a quick part in there and you're good to go. And I'll give you an example of that in just a second. That is different from a macro. A macro is a series of instructions that are put into Visual Basic for Applications code, and they get attached to the normal template and they record the things you do. So for example, if you wanted at the end of creating a legal research memo for Professor Walters, you wanted to then automatically change the margins to 1 inch all the way around, page number at the bottom, change everything to Times New Roman 12 point, and then print 3 copies, boom, 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 there's a list of steps. You could record a macro to do that. Their macros are covered in other courses, but it's just a repetitive and automated type of task that's a little bit distinguishable from a quick part. And so let me show you what this would look like in the next slide that I've got here. So the first thing that you would do, and remember, I've always given you the instructions here, is you would create and select your text. So in other words, you would create that good looking caption in that borderless table and you would highlight it. And then from there, you'd go to the Insert tab, the text group, the Quick Parts button. Again, I have the instructions written out here for you. And then you will say to save the selection to the Quick Part gallery. And there are lots of quick parts that are already built into Microsoft Word, things like bibliographies and works cited pages, which most professors, you will keep them up at night. You're just tormenting them if you use those, because none of those are consistent with college formatting. But you could then take that good looking table caption that I just did and create a building block. And again, what could you do? You could call it, Condon versus Greenberg doctor's caption. I wouldn't make it a super long name like that because it's hard to see on the list, but you can create it and store it in what is called the Quick Parts gallery. And you can give it a little description and you can say it's the case caption of Condon versus Greenberg doctors, 22L12345. And then once you do that, you have the ability to just go and pick that from that quick parts list and slap it in your document. So this is really, really cool and will save you oodles of time. There is nobody who can file, save as, and delete other stuff in a document faster than what I just showed you how to do here. This is all kinds of easy. Mr. Townsend, by the way, this will save you in law school when it comes time for case briefs. Helpful hint, follow me for more hacks, okay?
I surely will.
All right. So that's a little bit about what that quick part looks like. Now, you could also create it as a macro, and I was always a real big fan of macros. I use macros for things like the section symbol and the paragraph symbol and things like that. And if we had more time, we would certainly cover this, but I've given you the instructions here in how to do this. And what'll happen is that when you turn on the macro recorder, it will record every step you do. So going back to the example of changing something for Professor Walters to Times New Roman 12, 1-inch margins, pagination at the bottom, 3 copies, that's a sequential set of steps. And that macro will do everything you tell it to do. So I always advised my students to go ahead and make note of what they were going to do with a macro before they start recording it. Because if you start typing a bunch of stuff and then you highlight it and delete it, and then you hop over to Outlook, and then you switch back to Word, and then you format something, and then you go and jump into your email again, guess what? That macro is recording everything you're doing. So it's a really good idea to make a laundry list of the things you want that macro to do. And, you know, maybe that's an opportunity for us to do a fun little workshop at some time in the future, if I can be so bold to invite myself back to do something like that. So, you know, maybe that's something we can do. Quite honestly, though, colleagues, I really think quick parts are going to be the thing that you'll need to be able to get some stuff done. All right, tip number 6 of 7, using the PowerPoint master. This one is, I watched a lawyer do this. I had a lawyer who was doing a presentation, demonstrative evidence, needed the same photograph in every location at the bottom right-hand corner of the slideshow. The photograph itself had been taken with a cell phone, and it was about a 2 megabyte photo. All right, this demonstrative slideshow from start to finish was 298 slides long. Each slide had a 2 megabyte photo in it. Okay, do we know now at this point how big this file is turning out to be, right? And she's trying to get this thing open, and of course, what's the hardware doing on that computer? She says, who do I have to know to get this open? And I laughed and I said, you need to know my students. Because instead of her putting a physical 2 meg photo in each of 298 slides, she should have put the physical 2 meg photo in one slide master, which by the wonders of technology makes it appear in all 298 slides. I pulled the size of that file from, I think it was 93 megabytes down to 10 megabytes by doing that. And she said, I need students from your program. And I said, yes, you do. So here's the PowerPoint slide master and conceptually how this works. So it is a feature that's found off of the View tab in the Master Views group, and it'll give you this slide master tab. Now, what you'll see here, and I've done a screen cutout of it on the right, you see this great big slide here that's got the number 1 just to the left of it? That's like the master of all of the masters. Okay, so for example, if I had gone into the slide master for today's presentation and put the South Suburban College logo in that large slide right here, that would be appearing right now in all of my slideshow, the entire thing. I would not be physically inserting the SSC logo in all 26 of my slides. Then these smaller slides underneath these are for the individual layouts in PowerPoint. So, you know, when you have like a title slide, you could customize the title slide, or when you have your slides with your bullet points and your sub bullet points, or your 2 columns of bullet points, there is a slide master here for each one of the layouts in your PowerPoint slideshow. And there are also slide masters for your handouts pages or for your speaker's notes. So this allows you to customize these at that level. And then the power to that is you're keeping the size of the slideshow smaller. And I got to tell you, have you ever seen slideshows where they stuck the same picture in the slide and it's adjusted just a little bit? It's not in the exact same spot on every slide. Now, see, as a teacher, I'm the person who notices that, because now I'm not paying attention as a juror to what you were just writing about. I'm sitting there saying, why doesn't he have that picture in the same spot of the auto accident all the way across this presentation? That makes me the worst juror ever, right? But the point is that you can streamline the size of the file and you can upgrade the efficiency of this if you pay attention to that concept of the slide master. So that's a real powerful tool as well. The last slide, and then I want to jump back to Carla's question about source and target. But this last thing too, and Professor Walters and I talked about this, the Outlook calendar. And I'm shifting gears here a little bit into some business communications, business etiquette stuff. When we as program directors invite people to come to a meeting, we're really happy if people respond, because on the sender end of things, we can track who's showing up, so we can do a follow-up. And so because you all have Outlook, and it doesn't matter whether you're using Outlook on the desktop or whether you're using Outlook in the browser, you've all got this capability. So for example, here is my calendar. This is actually my personal calendar. And you'll see I've got some appointments on these. The dark green ones are appointments that were given to me by a consulting project that I'm working on right now. The blue ones are ones that I have scheduled for myself, things that I need to do. But when you saw Professor Walters sent you an appointment for today's session, she asked you to accept or decline. Well, in Outlook, you can do that. And you can also send her a message. So when she sent me the message for today's meeting, I accepted and I edited the response to say, I'm so excited to come back and be with your students. Thank you for the invite. But the power to that is that when you're the recipient and you're in an Outlook environment, most firms will also let you propose a new time for the appointment. Not all firms do that. And actually, Professor Walters could have controlled that too. That when she sent the appointment, I could have proposed, 10 o'clock really doesn't work for me, but I could make it at 11:30. So that I could have gone and declined and proposed a new time. And if she had accepted that proposal, all of you today would have gotten an appointment that instead said 11:30 instead of 10 o'clock. So there's power to using that calendar when you're the recipient. But when you're the sender, you also have the ability to track who has accepted and who has not, because then you can go and follow up with those folks. And the other thing is that if you're an Outlook user and you use the task manager, how many of you use tasks in Outlook to keep track of stuff you have to do instead of Post-it notes? Okay, so see, a whole bunch of you are using Post-it notes, or you're hoping you're remembering it, right? You can put tasks down. So for example, I used to say to my students, listen, you've got a research memo due and you've got all these milestones you've got to work backwards from. Put those in your calendar, because when you track a task, it'll show up on your calendar. And when it's overdue, the task shows up in red on your calendar. It's like your own personal Microsoft nag, right? It's bugging you and saying this was due 2 days ago. So a couple of things that are related to that. Let me show you an example. So here, when you are responding to an appointment, here's what you can do. You can accept, you can say tentatively you'll be there, you can decline it, you can propose a new time, or most of the time, you can also forward this appointment on to somebody else. In other words, you can delegate it. And you can also, once you accept the appointment or even make it tentative, it will block your time out on that calendar. Now, that doesn't mean I can see what you're doing. It just means that time shows you're unavailable if you and I share calendar access. But I don't need to know what it is you're doing. And you would actually have to give me the permission to do that. If you are a sender, though, look at the power of this. So in this example, if I was setting up an appointment, there is a tool in Microsoft Outlook called the Scheduling Assistant. And what most firms will do is not only let you add people, but many firms, including the firm that I worked at, we also had rooms in the calendar, so that if I set up this appointment today at the SSC library, I could also book the library from 10 until 11 this morning. And then that way, other people in the SSC network could not book that library. Many law firms will do that with conference rooms, or small private meeting rooms. But the power to this is that then when Professor Walters sees whether or not you've accepted this, she can see whether you're busy. She could also add optional attendees onto this. So for example, Professor Walters' associate dean, Dean Hellwig, was not a required attendee today, but as a courtesy, she let Dean Hellwig know that this meeting was going on today. And so then Dean Hellwig gets this message or this appointment and knows that her presence is not mandatory, but that it is optional if she chooses to show up. So there's a lot of power in being able to do this. And by the way, when you keep your calendar current and then Professor Walters sets up a future meeting, she's got a tool here called Auto Pick that will let her pick a date and a time that will work for most of you, which is useless if you don't keep your calendar up to date. So this is why using Outlook calendars and tracking appointments in this way just makes things really, really helpful for everybody. And then finally, if you put a task on your calendar and you set that up in Outlook, and I did one here for today, I can also make a list of things to do. I can attach the files that I need to include. I can make this a recurring task that I'm going to do this the second Saturday of every month for the next 6 months. I can delegate this to somebody else. I can mark it as a thing off my to-do list, which is like the satisfaction you get of tearing up a Post-it note, and mark it as complete. And then it falls off of your calendar as a task that has to be done. So there's a lot of power there to being able to do that. You can also even document the percentage to which you've completed this task. I'm halfway done with my research memo. Or that you want to set a reminder for yourself 3 days ahead of time. So I realized that that was a baker's half dozen of things, and that wasn't a lot of time for us to do a lot of that, but hopefully that was meant to sort of give you some inspiration for some of what we were looking to do here. So with that in mind, would it be okay if I would just kick out of this PowerPoint and open up Word and Excel so I can get back to Carla's question, and then Professor Walters, maybe we could see what other questions there are?
That sounds great.
Okay, let me go ahead and just kick out of this really fast. It's clogging up my screen here. All right, were there other questions that I can answer? Well, I'm just getting Word and Excel up, and then I'll do a reshare here in a second.
I had a question on the styles.
Yeah.
I seem to struggle with that at times, where my attorney says that the initial document, the formatting's changed.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that I'm doing, or is that, I'm a little confused about that because I don't go into the document to change it. But when I create the styles and try to say, for example, create a table of contents,
Yeah.
He's saying the spacing is changed and I didn't change anything. So
Okay, that's a great question. So
Okay.
here's, let me give you a couple of things to troubleshoot on. And, what we could maybe do next time we visit, Julie, I could maybe try and troubleshoot this a little more. When
Okay.
you create because I think you got a two-part question there. When you create a style, if you have said attach the style to the normal template, it will say, when you go to kick out of it, changes have been made to the normal template. Do you want to save those changes to the template? You would want to say yes, because
Okay.
if you don't, then that could mess up the formatting he's
Okay.
telling you.
Okay.
That's one thing. The second thing, and I think maybe the way to work around that, Julie, the second thing could be attach the style to the document instead, and then save it, because then he shouldn't be getting prompted to change his normal template. My best guess is that's coming up because that style doesn't sit on his template. It's sitting on your template.
Okay.
Make more sense?
We also realized we were running into the problem where we were on different versions, and that's just crazy.
That doesn't help your cause. No, you're absolutely right. That does not help your cause at all.
Like chasing my tail.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree. Yeah,
Um,
that's painful.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Are there other questions too? Okay. All right. So in this example, so can you all see my Word window right now? Okay. And now can you see my Excel window?
No.
No.
You cannot. Okay. All right. Because I got to do a new share. Well, that's kind of a pain. No, let me do it this way. Okay. Now can you see my Excel window?
We can see
Okay.
Excel, but not the Word.
Okay. Let me switch back to Word. Hold on a second. Now can you see Word?
Yes, just the Word.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, let me do it this way. It'll be faster. Okay, so let me take just a 2-minute detour here super quickly. And let's assume let me just create something here super fast. Okay, and then let me go and just run the sum here. All right. So I've got a super simple example here, right? And I went and did an auto sum and I've got that. So in this example, just to save some time here, I'm going to copy this to the clipboard, and you can tell it's copied to the clipboard because it's got the dancing ants going around the outside of it. That's what we always call those, the dancing ants, because you know, if they don't glow, they don't go. We always say that. So you can see that copied to the clipboard. Okay. All right. Let me jump over to Word now. And let me just say, fingers in the right spot here. Okay, so I've done this memo to her, right? Now, what I don't want to do here, Carla, is just a plain old paste, because all that's going to happen then, if I go and update those Excel numbers, they're not going to update. So what ends up happening here, instead of doing just a plain old paste, is I instead want to go here from my Home tab to the paste drop-down button here and choose paste special. And that's going to trigger the dialog box that was in my slideshow. And it says, oh, Chris, you know what? You copied an Excel file, sheet 1, row 3, column 2 to row 6, column 2. Should I just paste it in? No, I want it paste linked, and I want it linked as an Excel file. And then I want to do an OK. So the key here, Carla, is this paste link, and then picking what the source is. Make your best guess at that. And in this case, it was an Excel object. Let me okie dokie that. Here we go. Plugs it in here. Yes. Now, but here, if I go back to my Excel file, can you all see Excel now? Thumbs up. Okay, good. All right. Let me jump out of this and let me change a number here, and let me change the formatting. Okay, so I've gone ahead, I actually made a change to a number, so that changed to total. Let me pop some formatting in here super fast. So I got some dollar amounts in here, and now I'm gonna hop back to Word. I don't have to have Word open. Okay, there we go. We got the hands. We got the jazz hands going. There we go. All right, so I will say though, Julie, going back to your point where you said you're an attorney and you have different versions of Word, let me just tell you a super quick little bug when it comes to this. sometimes, especially if the document has been drafted in different versions of the software and it's been shifted between them, sometimes you automatically see that update. It's not, it's just because the document has some behavior from older versions of the software. So a really quick, super little fun workaround is just, Julie, to right click, tell your attorney this one. Tell him this one, it's time for your performance review, okay? So you want to right click on this little link and you do an update link. And Julie, that would force the update if you and he have been using different versions of software.
Okay, yeah. I finally had to look at his computer to realize that we had different versions.
Yeah. Carla, does that help? You're welcome. Does that better explain the difference between the source and the target?
Oh my God, yes.
Okay.
Question.
Sir.
So with that happening, would that also allow Julie to now no longer have to be concerned about that regarding her attorney?
Well, that little fix, Andre,
Yeah.
that's just a little good workaround to know. I will tell you the other concern that's going to pop up here is if that source gets moved someplace, right? Because when I go open up this Word document, it's saying, oh, Chris, you got a link going on here. I better go to the source and grab the most current information. So you can't be, saving this file in 27
Okay.
different locations.
Okay, got it.
The links,
Got it.
because
Okay.
the links drive back. In fact, let me just, just a second here. There's a little dialog box that'll pop up here, Andre, that shows us where this file is found. And so what ends up happening, like if Julie's attorney, did you notice I'm blaming this on the attorney? That isn't really very nice.
No, you're spot on.
But so if Julie's attorney ended up moving the source file, when she goes to open this thing up, it's going to say broken link and there will be an error message there. And then she's going to have to go and relink those things. So
Okay,
this is
all right.
based on the understanding that this stuff stays in a shared, the source and the target stay in the location that they were in when they were first brought together. That's a
Okay.
great question.
I have another question. I don't know if this is kind of off topic, but what we were talking about today, but just Friday, I had an issue where my attorney had asked me to save a document on the Outlook, which is also our document system I manage. And when he went to go in to make changes, he said I was still in the document, but I had closed it out. What is the proper way to close out a document in Outlook / iManage? Because when I go back in there to look at it, it looks like I'm still in the document. Is it file close, or can you just X out at the top right? What is the proper way?
And you said this is a document that is in Outlook iManage.
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm going to have to be a little cautious about my answer because I have not specifically worked with iManage, but in general terms, what you should be able to do is do a file close and close the file without exiting the product, because there's file close and then there's file kicking out of the product.
So if the red check mark is still there and still showing that either myself or he is still in the document after we did the file close, do we need to refresh or something? Because we were going back and forth with that.
And not having, I don't have experience with iManage. So what I would say though is if you're finding that maybe stuff has not yet synchronized, then I would close out of the application altogether, because that's a cloud-based product you're using, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so that could actually still be a bit of a synchronizing issue. Sometimes you see that in OneDrive. If you're sharing files in OneDrive, you can also see that in Microsoft Teams.
Okay.
In that environment. So that is just kind of like the next step, triaging that, because it sounds like a sync thing.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, let me do a stop share here because you don't need to see what my sales of $456 were. So that kind of takes care of what what we talked about. I hope this was helpful. I'm happy to answer other questions. I know we've run a couple minutes over, but thank you for your time.
Very helpful. Can we do another one at some point, Professor Walters?
Yeah, I mean, if Dr. Condon, she is going to come back to teach us a little bit on some legal writing, right? Is that what Dr. Condon? I can't
We're
remember.
talking about the court system. And doing that the Illinois court system on the heels of the redistricting and after the November election, because there is a significant change going on in the Illinois Supreme Court right now. And it's important that we watch that with the redistricting that's happened. So
that's right. Thank you. I'm coming out. I will be sending out shortly the list of all of our speakers for this upcoming school year as well. We do have another instructor who's going to speak about, another attorney who's going to speak about legal writing and legal appellate briefs specifically. So I was getting a little confused there, but yeah, but Julie, we'll figure out another way to do another one of these. Absolutely. I think this was really helpful for everyone.
Very helpful.
Yeah.
I'm so glad.
Walters, will you be at the Oak Forest campus on the 22nd? Or actually, no, my class starts September 22nd, which is odd. I was just wondering, when I came to the campus, would I see you there?
Oh, well, I'll be at the main campus during my office hours. So I'll be there on Tuesdays and Thursdays most of the day. But if we can definitely meet up there. If you need anything, we can talk about the law library. Anyone, like, if you ever want a tour of the law library, or you want to just like chat and meet at the Oak Forest campus, let me know. I'm happy to meet you there and we can talk and figure things out. What class do you have at the Oak Forest campus, Julie?
It's going to be the business math.
Okay.
Tuesdays and Thursdays.
All right. Okay. Well, is it during the day or at night?
It's in the evening.
Okay.
Yeah, I can only do the evening classes.
Yeah, I get it.
Thank you, Dr. Condon.
Law library as well. Oh. Professor, I have a question about the law library as well.
Yes, please.
There's a table on the east side of the library with boxes of books. What are those? Are they returns or?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the attorneys in the South Suburban Bar Association, he just retired from practice and he donated all of those books to our library. So we do need to get them categorized into the system and everything, but most of them are on like real estate and just like transactional law. So you're welcome to take a look through them if you'd like. So I know they're just sitting there right now, but they are going to be put on the shelves shortly. So
I did.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Extremely helpful.
Oh, good. Okay, great.
I just need an attorney to do it because I can't do it myself, but I need to do something in Chancery for specific performance on a condo association. So that was right on top.
Oh, awesome. Well, please take a look. You're welcome to, use those books. They're there, for the purposes of the library. So, they're technically there. They're just not shelved yet. So please.
Oh my God, what a treasure. What a treasure. Please tell counsel. Thank you very much.
I will. I have told him, and I'll tell him again that they're already getting much use. He'll be very excited to hear that. It was
that needle on the haystack right on the top.
Yeah.
It was gold. It was gold. And today's class, when I'm like, wait a minute, I'm having problems with work right now. Yeah. So the fact that my sources that I have can be married very easily with my Word documents, phenomenal.
That's great. Go ahead, Dr. Condon.
Oh, no, I just uploaded a PDF of this. So if we can go ahead and, if you want to download it and make sure that it works okay, I think we should be okay.
Yeah, I'll do a little test run here, and I'll also send an email to the group with it as well, so that everybody.
So it's just the individual slides, and it should be 26 pages in PDF. So it's got all the instructions with it. So hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you.
What a great cheat sheet. Thank you
so much, Dr. Condon. This was a big hit today.
My pleasure.
So much.
Thank you for asking. It was nice to be back visiting.
Yes, it was nice to have you. And I do just want to remind everyone to please, if you have any friends or colleagues that you know are thinking about the program, please encourage them to register. We have an open house tomorrow. I'm sorry, on Monday at 7 p.m. That's on Zoom. And so I'd love to meet with them, and some of our current students and alumni will be there as well to answer questions. Full disclosure, I'd love to just fill up our PLA 101 class for the fall. So please encourage them to register. And if you haven't registered yet, please do so. I want to make sure that you get into the classes that you want. Yeah, any questions from anybody?
I have a question. Did you say that you were going to add some links regarding this meeting, or are we going to be able to watch this video again?
Yes, we have a YouTube channel for the paralegal program now. So let me pull it up. I'm going to send this in an email as well, but let me pull it up for you. And this is where it's going to be housed once the recording from today, where I'm going to house it once I upload it. So let me pull that up.
Oh, I'm going to be a viral sensation. That in the
You
top.
are. I was actually already thinking that it would be great to just even pull pieces of your tips, and share in our classes, Dr. Condon.
Help yourself.
Be so helpful. All right, let me pull here. Here is subscribe. Sorry guys, let me pull it up. Okay. So here, I'm going to put the link in the chat here. Okay, so this is the link to our Student Alumni Association, or our Department of Legal Studies YouTube page, and I'll share my screen so you can see what it looks like as well here. So it's basically got short videos about our program. But then also our law library tour and a recording from our open house recently that we had in May. And then I'll also record the one that we have on Monday. But I'm also going to start adding the presentations from speakers that we have in our Student Alumni Association as well, so you all can access it. Does that encourage you to invite anyone who might be interested in the program to take a look at our awesome YouTube channel that has some of our familiar faces you might recognize, and answer any questions that we might have. So
I'm real excited. I did tell one of my directors, and his wife, like, she's a former teacher, and they are strong